Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Story Time with Pastor Maureen. This is Pastor Maureen Howard from Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Washington, Iowa. And I am so glad we are together today. I know it's a little later than we normally meet, but I had a phone call or a conference call with our bishop today with all the chaplains in the conference. In the synod, I should say, and I am one of those chaplains, so I needed to be at that meeting. So I am glad that we are together finally today and hope that you'll be able to watch and enjoy the story for today. So we are reading from the Jesus Storybook Bible, and it's written by Sally Lloyd-Jones, and it's illustrated by Yago. And so today's story is the teeny weeny true king, and it's Samuel anoints David, and it's from 1 Samuel, the 16th chapter. Okay, are you ready? All right, let's begin. God's people had a new land. Now they wanted a king. But God is your king, Samuel told them. He is the one who looks after you best. We want a real king, they said, one we can see. God knew that a king might not be kind to his people or look after them as well as he. But God's people didn't care. They wanted a king, and they wanted him now. So God gave them a king. He was called Saul, and he seemed like a good king at first. But he became proud and stopped listening to God. He didn't obey God or love God with his whole heart. Saul couldn't help me with my plan, God said. I need a king who loves me and will teach my people to love me. I need a true king. God had just the one in mind. Go to Bethlehem, God told Samuel. You'll find a new king there. Samuel's job was to listen to God and to tell people what God said. So here we have a picture. We'll start on this side. And this is King Saul. And can you see how King Saul is smiling? He looks pretty proud that he is king. As we would say, it's kind of gone to his head. And we've got someone fanning him there with a palm branch. And someone is bowing down, making sure that Saul knows that he's king. And over here, we have someone bringing Saul, it looks like maybe a cup of water or something for him. And if we pull the book out a little bit, can you see how fancy schmancy that house is? The palace that the king is living in? He's forgotten that God is really the king. It's gone to Saul's head. But God knows there's another king that he wants. So Samuel went to the little town of Bethlehem. God told Samuel to go to Jesse's house. God was going to choose one of Jesse's sons to be the new king. Jesse had 7 strong sons. Now, in those days, if you were going to be the king, you didn't have to be the richest or the cleverest, although that was always nice. You had to look like a king, which meant you had to be the tallest and the strongest, so you could carry the longest swords and biggest armor and defeat everyone. And it didn't hurt to be handsome either. Samuel asked Jesse to bring him each son in turn. So Jesse brought the oldest, tallest, strongest son. This must be the new king, Samuel thought. He looks like a king. But God didn't choose him. You're thinking about what he looks like on the outside, God told Samuel. But I am looking at his heart, what he looks like on the inside. So Jesse showed Samuel his next oldest, tallest, strongest son. But God didn't choose him either. In fact, God didn't choose any of the 7 sons. Samuel said, "Is that all?" Jesse laughed. "Oh, well, there's the youngest one, but he's just the weakling of the family. He's only teeny. Bring him," said Samuel. And so here we have the 7 sons, the strongest sons of Jesse. And now look how strong. Oh, here's this guy. Look at his muscles on his arm. And you can see they're getting shorter and shorter and tinier and tinier. Here are the 7 sons, but the strongest and the tallest of the sons were not who God was going to choose. Well, let's find out who God chooses. Jesse's youngest son came running up, and God spoke quietly to Samuel. "This is the one." His name was David. "He has a heart like mine," God said. "It's full of love. He will help me with my secret rescue plan. And one of his children's children will be the king. And that king will rule the world forever." Samuel anointed David's head with oil, which was a special way to show that you were God's chosen king. "You will be the new king one day," Samuel told him. And sure enough, when he grew up, David became king. God chose David to be king because God was getting his people ready for an even greater king who was coming. Once again, God would say, "Go to Bethlehem. You'll find the new king there." And there, one starry night in Bethlehem, in the town of David, 3 wise men would find him. Well, let's look. And here we have teeny weeny David coming and running. And David was a shepherd. And you can see David was taking care of the sheep out in the field. He was the youngest brother. And so he was teeny tiny. And then here we have a picture of Samuel pouring the oil on top of David's head, saying, "David, you will be king." Do you know who the king is that was in Bethlehem that the wise men came to see? Yes, you're right. It was Jesus. Jesus is our king, and Jesus is our forever king. Absolutely, you are correct. Now, how many of you are the tallest and strongest? I'm certainly not. I'm little, and so I have to look up to a lot of people because they're so much taller than I am. So maybe you are little too. But you know what? God looks inside our hearts, and we don't have to be tall and strong to be chosen by God. God uses you. Yeah, little us. God chooses us to be God's presence in the world. God chooses you and me to show what love looks like. And we know what love looks like because we know what looks like through Jesus. And so we know that we are loved and we are wanted and we are precious and we are fabulous because Jesus looks at us, God looks at us and says, you are mine. So let's say it together. We've been doing this for several days. On the count of 3, let's say, Jesus loves me. All right, let's do it that way. Jesus loves me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Jesus loves me. Absolutely, Jesus loves you, Connor. And Jesus loves you, Helen and Mitchell, Joshua, Ivy, Harold. Jesus loves you. And Kevin and Kendra and Micah and Maura and Caleb. God has his arms around you and says, you are my precious children. And Heather and Kim and Cora and Leslie and Bob and Dwayne, Linda, Tim, God says, you are my beloved children. And so, children of God, it doesn't matter how tall you are. It doesn't matter how strong you are, because God chooses you to bring love into the world. And so, people of God, you have a wonderful day today, for you are chosen. You are loved by Jesus. Now, tomorrow, I will see you again at 10 o'clock in the morning. So until then, have a great day and know that you are loved. Bye-bye, everybody.